Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone. Joined now by Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Mitch, good morning.
Good morning, DJ. Happy to be on with you today.
Happy to have you here. You are on the road. I believe you're about to echo what PK says. When you get on the road, do you find time to talk to people one-on-one aside in a way that you can't get when you're on the Wasatch Front?
No question.
You hate to give up the trade secrets. Nice pause.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's you get the one-on-one time with the administrators and coaches. It's a great setup, the Big 12 spring meetings, and I will say that there's definitely a lot of frustration from coaches about the current system as expected. They all want rules to follow by. At least that's what they say. But, I think that there's, a quiet optimism, I think, though, about the future of the Big 12, which is interesting to me because you hear so much about, a potential split between the Big 10 and SEC and how do they close the financial gap, the Big 12. But yet there seems to be a lot of optimism about the future of the Big 12, which is interesting because it's a league that, after 2031, what can you do they have the same fate as the Pac-12? Like, what happens with this league? But yet they feel like they're still leveling up with the investment that these schools are still putting in. It's kind of an interesting, there is some momentum, it seems like, with the Big 12, despite what would on the surface seem like they're far behind the SEC and Big 10.
Well, they are, and there's some teams that financially will never be able to keep up. But I think life goes on, having grown up rooting for a team that has limited financial resources. And then I went to a school that's got limited financial resources and doesn't even play football. They dropped it and tried to bring it back and then dropped it again. There's still a spot out there for games and star athletes and big moments, and it'll look different going forward, but you'll figure it out, and sports isn't going away at these schools. It may look different, but, Baylor and Texas Tech were in the Southwest Conference. They're in the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri, and without them, and A&M. So it'll go on. There'll be something out there, and they'll have a lot of money, and they'll play big games, and it'll look cool. But it may look really different in another 5 or 10 years. That's to be sure. In the short run, how much optimism is there for this season and getting more than one playoff team and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, they feel really confident. And even Brett Yormark told me that he feels that, some of the brands, the football brands, are separating themselves from the parity pack that the Big 12 has been known for the first couple of years, and highlighted, of course, Texas Tech. Yep. But also BYU and Utah. He feels like those are some of the three programs that are really elevating themselves. And for BYU, Kalani Sitake feels really good about where his football team is at. He even noted that, LJ Martin is looking really good when I asked him if he's cleared and ready to go. And he said that LJ will be ready to go for the start of fall camp and good to go on that front, that it looks excellent right now. I think this is a critical year for BYU, and I think it's also critical for Utah too, even though it's year one for Morgan Scalley, that, they kind of have the opportunity to establish themselves as maybe that big three in the league, because Texas Tech is not slowing down, and that was quite the spectacle yesterday to see Joey McGuire calling out Texas, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic to see kind of almost like a WWE style.
Yep, you're on the same page, man. We are on the same exact page with that, Mitch. I thought the same thing. I thought that'll never happen, but I'm glad he said it. It gives me something to talk about. The showmanship. Basically, the only thing they missed is why didn't he say something totally Texas like, Sarkeesian's all hat, no cattle. That's the only thing missing. Otherwise, it was all there.
It really was, but I think that it's a good football product. It was interesting talking with the Big 12 football chief, Scott Draper. He noted that the College Football Playoff Committee chairman spoke to the football coaches and laid out that the Big 12 in many metrics last year rated as the second best conference. And I asked Scott Draper, I said, well, why did that not reflect itself in the rankings? Because, yes, Texas Tech was number 4, but BYU was undervalued. Same with Utah, who only had 2 losses to 2 teams that were in the top 14 of the rankings. And he said that's where things get a little bit foggy, and that's where there's some coaches have some of the frustration with the playoff, and that's why they've unified and all agree on voting for 24. Kalani Sitake said that whether it's 12, 16, or 24, he doesn't care either way, but he did say that 24 he wants more access, and he does believe that could be. He'd feel confident that would be a path where more Big 12s can get in. But I asked Yormark, though, about, if he'd want the automatic qualifiers or not, and he said he does not want any automatic qualifiers, which to me is a little bit problematic, because who's to say that 10-2 BYU or 10-2 Utah doesn't slide near the back of the rankings? We've seen that before with. You go look at some top 25 rankings in the past with the committee. Kansas State a few years ago in the 4-team playoff was, a 1 or 3 loss team. They were in like the top 10. They were higher ranked than what BYU was last year. Who's to say it just doesn't shift back, and the SEC and Big Ten teams that naturally have better metrics, it seems like, are going to be higher in a 24-team format. But Yormark doesn't want any at-large bids for the 24-team playoff format.
He will not come on the show. Yak has requested multiple times, so I'm glad you got to talk to him, because that's about our only access to him. And that's too bad, but I don't understand it. You ought to be marketing yourself the way the NFL markets themselves, which is they get out there and take all the free media they can. They have multiple 49ers talking yesterday in the offseason. So I don't get why he does that. But to me, the logic is, and you can address this too, it seems Yormark is already in favor of a 10th conference games, which, as big as these leagues are, I'm in favor of. So you play the teams more often and you develop some kind of rivalry and history. And the other leagues have kind of been talking about it. The SEC did it during the pandemic, and I think it went over well. I wouldn't be surprised if they go to it at some point, in the Big Ten as well. So how are you going to compare between conferences if they're never playing each other? Plus, also, it gives you something to play for. The Athletic had a really interesting story that they went out and talked to coaches who are at the FCS level and D2 and D3. What's it like to be in 24, 32, and 40-team playoffs? Because that's what they do. And they said all these arguments, they're amazed about the arguments about the games at the end of the year won't matter, and Michigan and Ohio State will be sitting players. And they went to these smaller schools and rivalry games. It's not what happens. The players want to play, and you're playing for seeding, you're playing for buys, you're playing for home games. And the buys have not been useful early on, but all the coaches are like, well, that's because they're giving them 23 days off, and that's too much. Rest versus rust, now you're in rust territory. But 1 week is very valuable. And they tracked how those teams did in the playoffs. Those are the ones who win and make deep runs and go to the title games. So I think there'd be a lot to play for, but I think you have to give every league 4 berths and then let the committee maybe disperse the last, if they're giving one to the G5, disperse the last 9 and do the seeding. And do the seeding as well. The last 7, I guess, would be. Do the last 7 berths, but 4 teams from each league locked in. And then you're playing for that. You're playing for the automatic berth to be off the bubble, and you're playing for a home game.
I agree with you. I think that's spot on, and I think that the automatic qualifiers would ratchet up the intensity and the excitement. I mean, and I think it is funny, the narrative about, how it'll hurt the regular season. We all witnessed a BYU program for more than a decade, as an independent where really they played for nothing after they won their sixth game, yet people still cared. It was still far paled in comparison to what they're experiencing now in the Big 12. But even then in independence where they get to 6-3 and really they were playing for a whole lot of nothing, especially in November, people still care because football is a lot of money and there's a lot on the line. People are going to naturally care. And so I think that it can be a really good thing. And I think for the state of Utah, to have access, real legitimate access to the playoff. And I think that's just exciting. And that energizes, I think, really all the programs, because even Utah State could look and say, if we do this and this in a really good Pac-12, that could do a world of good for Bronco Mendenhall's program. So I think the 2014 playoff, it's so radical compared to what we grew up with college football. But you know what? I think it's a better system than having, the media vote for the national champion. So I'm okay with 2014 playoff being a thing because, I think there's good football all across the country. And with the investment that you're seeing with some of these teams, it makes a lot of sense. And Yormark told me that he feels the 2014 playoff will, as he put it, take some of the heat off of the spending because, we're getting to a point where Kyle Whittingham said 50 million rosters are here and it's coming. Yormark believes that it might tone down the spending a little bit to get to top 25 rather than top 12. I still think that that's a little bit naive, but that's where he kind of stands on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not with you, actually. I don't think it's a little bit naive. I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot naive. I think people who write checks want wins, and there is no end to the amount of complaining they'll do. And the best local example I've seen of that, when they were dedicating the new indoor practice facility, and Kyle had just taken over for Urban only a couple years earlier. No, it wasn't the indoor practice facility. It was the new Death Star. That's what it was. It was the new football headquarters, that building. And they had a tent out there. And Spence Eccles, who's the easiest guy to talk to, couldn't be a nicer guy. I've interacted with him multiple times, and he loves his Utes. He has written so many checks, but he got up in front of that microphone and recounted that was a long drive back from Logan after that loss. And I looked over at Kyle. I could see him. There's always people in the way, right? But I could see through. I see the look on his face, and I'm like, that's the look Kyle looks on his face when he's trying to keep a straight face so that people like me don't comment on his face. He was not thrilled. But you write those checks. Every game matters. You want every win. Yeah. Spence was being honest. And they'd done a lot of winning. Kyle was stringing together double-digit win seasons at that point. They weren't far removed from the Sugar Bowl at that point. I was like, really? It was like one overtime game on a bad call. A phantom holding call. You got to call him out now in front of everybody? Ouch. But I think on the end of wild, passionate, crazy outlet. I think Spence Eccles is on the mellow end of that. There's tons of boosters at lots of schools who are way more wired than he is for that kind of thing. That's nothing, true. Really.
It's true. And to your point, too, about, 10 conference games, I did talk to the football chief, Scott Draper, about that. And they did say that they are exploring that. And the focus on that would be to enhance the media rights. And that was something that's interesting takeaway with this week is, basketball, they've acknowledged too that they're looking at the 20-game schedule. They said it won't happen this year, but
why not? Come on, move it along. Buy out some of those money games. Get on with it.
Well, I think that, I would say, though, with basketball, they probably should stay at 18 because I think the 20-game schedule, you look at the Big 12, I think the strength of the league kind of got hurt by having a 20-game schedule 2 years ago where they didn't have as many NCAA tournament bids. And I think that because there's oddly enough, there's some quality to playing those quad four teams if you can blow them out. If you can beat them by 30 or 40 points, that can help your metrics. And then by the time you get to the conference season, you're sitting in the top 25 of the predictive ratings, and you're probably going to be nestled in there the whole time, assuming you don't get blown out in many games. So I think that 18 to me would be honestly the spot, I think.
If the analytics are helped by the fact that you beat Riverside by 70, somebody needs to change the analytics. I'm with Kevin Young. He, after one of those games, I can't remember which one, but after about their fourth blowout of somebody who was wildly overmatched, he said, I don't know what we get from these games. Yes, what he said right there. I think more Quad 1 games, and the whole reason they came up with Quad 1 is so the power leagues could lock themselves in. They did that to screw over the UC Santa Barbaras and San Diego States of the world. I get it. I know why they did it. So lean into that, Big 12. Two more Quad 1 games. Plus, it'll make your TV package more valuable. There'll be more big games. People want to see conference games from Arizona and Kansas. And the way BYU's going from BYU, too. This is what ESPN's leaning into. And here's another thing for football, and I'd be interested if you talk to people on this. Why is the Big 12 locked into largely 3 non-conference games in a row and then 9 conference games? They should be moving more conference games to week 2 and 3, like they did BYU Arizona, but they only did that so BYU could play Notre Dame. I think Texas Tech, and this is the one that to me, because Texas isn't going to play them game 1. So talk about it, but it ain't happening. But if SEC teams are going to bail on Notre Dame games, McGuire said, we'll take that game. The Big 12, that could happen. The Big 12 should absolutely take those games. The Big 12 should go to Notre Dame and say, we'll play you in October and November. Let's do it. It makes your TV package more valuable. Move conference games to week 2 and 3. The TV networks are dying for good games week 1, 2, 3. And the coaches will say, we don't want conference games week 1. And I get that. I'll give that to the coaches. But weeks 2 and 3, play conference games. You'll get good time slots. CBS will pick you up. Fox will pick you up and put you in that 1:30 window. Let's go. Let's do it.
And I did talk to people about that, and the ACC was very cooperative in bringing together the BYU Notre Dame game, and they highlighted that collaboration. Even though these leagues sometimes don't get along on things, there are areas that they do collaborate, and as people have noted, that it's for the good of the game, if you will. But yeah, I mean, I think the Notre Dame piece is interesting because Notre Dame, it seems like with the Big Ten and SEC, they're trying to squeeze the Irish out, and there's an opportunity there for Big 12 teams to, schedule the Irish. And, Brian Santiago noted that, a lot of conversations with Pete Bavacqua, Notre Dame athletic director, about more athletic meetings beyond just football. They're hoping to make this a long-term thing. And I talked to Santiago about how that could happen, but the week 0, potentially changing week 1 to week 0 in the future, beginning next year, that's going to be a vote next month. That could create some shuffling with the schedules. And even Santiago acknowledged that some schedules could shuffle around in the non-conference because of the week 0 dynamic and having that new date. So when you're changing the date, that can change the terms of some contracts, and some shuffling could be around. He hopes that, Notre Dame could be a long-term partner, and that makes sense. I mean, it's been talked about the last few weeks, BYU and Notre Dame. That make a ton of sense. But the Big 12 did note that they were very willing to collaborate with BYU and Notre Dame and the ACC to get that game in October, because I talked to him. I said that's very uncommon for the Big 12 to have a non-conference game in October. Were you willing to do that? And they said absolutely, because we need a game like that that's going to be high profile, and it would just made all the sense in the world. And I think it helped the cause too that BYU was getting the first home game, because, I mean, as well as anyone, it's like that every round table with Tom Holmoe was like, what's going to happen with that Notre Dame series? And now to think that the ACC, which was kind of the thorn in the side for that series, they end up being, more collaborative in helping BYU get the Irish to pro. So, yeah, and with scheduling too, I talked, with some people about, permanent rivals, because now we're starting to get some history in the Big 12. And I know that PK's talked about this, BYU and ASU need to play all the time. And, they are going to be considering that with the scheduling matrix coming up that's going to expire after 2027. They are looking at maybe multiple annual fixture teams beyond just BYU and Utah. Maybe it's BYU and Arizona State. Maybe it's, Utah and Colorado, potentially, whatever it may be. They are looking at, having permanent rivals, because that also adds value to the media rights. They are just already, I really wasn't expecting they are locked in on that next media rights deal. I mean, that is what your mark is thinking about every single day pretty much. And I think that's the right approach, because the Big 12, for years ago when BYU was even outside the league, you always looked at it from afar and said, that's a flat-footed league that always was reactionary. They're trying to be proactive in a climate where maybe the system will shake and turn underneath them, but they're trying to be proactive and ready for the moment to, potentially pounce when that media rights comes and whatever that may look like in the future.
Mitch, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on getting it in and out of Frisco before it hits 90. Good work by you.
Thanks, DJ.
Yeah, Frisco at 105 is no fun. I've done that. You got to avoid that. It gets pretty hot there. Thanks, Mitch. Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. He's at the Big 12 meetings. Coming up next, Jason Batacao, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune, with a story about the University of Utah, Otro Capital. The state auditor says the private equity deal has significant risks. We'll talk with Jason coming up next. Stay with us.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
He covers the NHL for Sportsnet. He is Luke Fox.
Now Austin Matthews is obviously very much in the news, and you've seen the Mammoth's name tied pretty closely to Matthews if he were to hit the trade market.
Utah's interest in Austin Matthews is 100% accurate. They would have to join a few other teams that would probably be raising their hand. If he does say, hey, I want out, for sure the Mammoth would be all over that. The Sharks would be over that. The Kings. There would be a number of teams that would want a player like him, because they just don't become available very often, especially when they're in their prime. A couple years back, he scored 69 goals, threatened 70, which hasn't been done since the 90s. So a player like that may or may not become available, absolutely, the Mammoth are all over that. They want a superstar.
Catch Jake and Ben, afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you love podcasts, you already know how to fit great stories into your busy day. So why not do the same thing with books? Everand is an affordable audiobook and ebook subscription that goes wherever you go. Your commute, your workout, your grocery run. No rearranging your schedule, no carving out reading time. Just hit play. For a limited time, new members get 2 free books when they start a free trial. Go to everand.com/listen to claim yours. That's everand.com/listen.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
DJ and PK. PK with a little bit of time off. He'll be back next week. We're joined now by Jason Batacao, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Look at you, Jason. You got a good story. The paywall is down. You're on the radio, increasing your profile. This is a good day to be Jason Batacao. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's Friday, and it's a Friday.
And
so
see, look at another thing. Look at you go.
Yeah, it's a Friday. The weekend's coming up after a short week, so can't complain, man. Feeling good. It's summertime. The sun's out, so yeah, tons of good things going on, I could say. So yeah.
I want to dive into your story in the private equity deal. Everybody's talking about it. Good job by you getting to this story and getting it out there. And people need to know, some of the limitations that you can run into sometimes, but not all the time when you're reporting, and the public doesn't really know how this works. So you're able to quote the Utah State Auditor here. Did you get to interview the auditor, or were you replying on a summary of written remarks to get the quotes?
Yeah, so I had obtained a letter from a source kind of outlining and detailing a May 19th letter that the auditor had sent the Board of Trustees just about her concerns, just about the private equity deal. She had also hosted a 4 o'clock p.m. Press conference yesterday at the Capitol regarding MIDA. I ended up going up there and asking her a few questions, but that'll be in a further story either today or tomorrow. But yeah, all the quotes and the things that I had were from a letter that I obtained from a source, and it became public, and I'm glad it did become public. So yeah, was kind of the process of it all. Nothing too crazy.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is that the auditor is concerned that the money that comes in from Otro Capital will largely be used for, I guess, what we could refer to as day-to-day expenses, as opposed to like something like redoing the Huntsman Center. Is that the takeaway you got?
Yeah, I would say that I think that based off of the letter, I think she's concerned about a lot of things. I think she's concerned that the money that is going to be going into the deal won't be enough to, I guess, fix Utah's current financial situation. And to be fair, I mean, the financial situation that the University of Utah is facing is kind of a reality that a lot of, state institutions are facing across the board. I mean, there's, schools that are having to pay $20.5 million each year now to compete in the NCAA. Honestly, more with schools like LSU and other places having 40 million plus rosters. And so, the crunch for money has been real in the NCAA. And the U has, publicly said that, they think that this would fix a lot of their NIL problems, or maybe not even their NIL problems, but just, financial problems regarding the athletic department. Really what the state auditor said in the letter said that this will just be a short-term Band-Aid, and she doesn't view it as a fix for a long-term solution, as they say it is. So that's kind of what it went down to. She also mentioned that, transparency is a big issue. And I think a lot of people have felt that, not me, obviously, but just state officials. I think when the deal was first finalized, there was a few state senators that I had talked to personally, and they had mentioned to me, there was no heads up, there was no, prior conversation. And now that the deal has kind of been approved by the Board of Trustees, there's not been any real information out there publicly about, why, they had said it was going to be finished in Q1. It's now been 6 months. There's been no, public information released about, what the financial totals will be, what the stake will be. And so, I think this letter's kind of the first, real public, I guess, transparency regarding an elected state official. I know Dave Checkett's kind of went on the record with, I think it was the Front Office Sports or something, and he had kind of publicly criticized the deal. But this is an elected official, and her doing it in a letter to the Board of Trustees in an oversight of several iterations of the deal that she has seen based off of what she wrote in the letter. So that's kind of the broad jibber jabber that I'm giving on it. I'm probably talking too much.
No, you're doing fine. The Utah State Auditor, so they issue this. Now, what do you think what has anyone indicated to you as you talk to state senators in that, what the next steps might be as far as what impact might this have on the school president, on regents, on state legislators, and how might it affect the process of, as you say, getting this Otro deal across the finish line, which it's, kind of done, but it's not completely finished. So what kind of impact can this have?
Yeah, I think it's just a push for more transparency. I think, on the University of Utah's end, they're not going to let anything impact the deal from getting done. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think Utah's too far along in negotiations. They've already publicized it pretty deeply. And there's an indication that, it will go into effect on July 1, barring, any breakdowns of the negotiations, based off of what I've been told. And so, I think on the University of Utah's end, this is just a push from the state, and the state auditor for more transparency, and maybe a potential, overlooking of the deal. But I think, from the University of Utah's end, I don't think it changes much for them, honestly. I think that they have to, in the short term, get this deal done because, again, I don't think that they can afford to financially and fiscally to, not make this deal. They need an influx of cash. The cost of running an athletic department, if you want it to be, extremely competitive as they do at the University of Utah, especially with their football program, it costs a lot of money. And that doesn't just start with the football program. It starts with women's sports. It starts with the Olympic sports. And, we've seen programs across the nation. I mean, Utah, even last year, that they cut in Olympic sports. Obviously, they cited it for conference reasons. But, the squeeze of running an athletic department is so tight right now that you need as much money as you can get. A lot of places have tried going to the state for more money, or they've upped donor coffers, or, and not every place is the SEC or the Big Ten or Ohio State or Michigan. That's just the reality of a lot of places in the NCAA. And so I don't think on Utah's end it impacts anything. I do think it will provide more transparency to the public because, the deal in the eyes of the auditor is a short-term Band-Aid for the long-term fiscal issues that the U might be facing. So that would be my comment on it. I know I'm sounding like a politician right now.
Well, you got to have a future, man. Maybe it's politics. Who knows? I think that as I look at it and as I talk to people, and we probably talk to some of the same people, but we also probably talk to some different people. And it doesn't matter if it's coaches, administrators, boosters, whoever might have insight into the future of Utah athletics, ex-players for that matter. To me, the Utah football program, and I could be wrong about this because football is changing pretty quickly, but unless they get in the Big Ten, now if they get into the Big Ten or the SEC, the numbers change pretty quickly. So there's that. But if they don't get into the Big Ten or the SEC for whatever reason, including the Big Ten or SEC just flat out don't expand, I mean, whatever it is.
Right.
But as long as they're in the Big 12, I view football as largely a mature business. I don't see where there's a big pile of cash waiting for the Utes unless they get into one of those two big leagues because they got more money and you'll get more money in that case. But I do see if there's growth for the U, to me, it's about redoing the Huntsman Center. I've watched the Delta Center get rebuilt. I've watched what the Millers have done with America First Field, the soccer stadium in Sandy, and they can create a lot more money in the same space with a remodel of the Huntsman Center. And it would certainly impact men's basketball. If men's basketball is even halfway decent, they don't have to return to glory, but just being a tournament team that goes out in the first round, they can make a lot more money, especially if they redo the arena with premium seating and luxury suites. Maybe it would even make a little more money for volleyball and women's basketball. But aside from that, I don't see how they could take this Otro money and grow it and turn it into more money so that they pay Otro back and so that they have more money to work with, except for they could unlock cash in the Huntsman Center. Do you see it the same way? Have you heard the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the university and my sources have been pretty, indicative on renovating the Huntsman Center in the near future. That's going to cost a lot of money. My bet would be most, or maybe even I don't think most of the money from the Otro Capital deal is going to go toward the Huntsman Center. I think that would come from a state bond or donors or, pieces of such a thing. I don't think they went into this with the Otro Capital, private equity fund and were like, this is fully going to be for, the Huntsman Center. I think it's going to be servicing debt payments. I think it's going to be, helping fund revenue sharing and all of those things above. But no, I would agree. I think the Huntsman Center is very outdated. I mean, and to your point about the Big Ten and maximizing on revenue, I think, they haven't maximized on revenue and at the Huntsman Center and with men's basketball. I mean, there's so many open seats. The concessions are outdated. The concourse is packed. I've only seen, very few sold out games at the Huntsman Center, and I've only been here for 2 years. So, I've been here kind of in the, maybe you could say, the dark days of Utah basketball. But when it's sold out, it's a great venue, but that doesn't happen often. And that's because of a lot of factors, but you downsize the arena, maybe you get more luxury suites. Some of the stuff that they've done at Rice Eccles has led to, more revenue for them. And I would agree with that. And I think that's also part of the Otro Capital deal. I mean, you're handing off, a minority stake to Otro and, the LLC that they're creating, Crimson Brand Partners, to kind of upscale their ticketing, their in-game experience. And part of that is like, maybe they do charge more for tickets or concessions or et cetera, but the in-game experience is so good now, is kind of the sell or maybe what they're targeting for, that, you can maximize those profits and revenue. And so, I would agree with you on that. And I think, they brought a proposition to the Board of Trustees several months ago. And, I've kind of been indicated that something surrounding the Huntsman Center will come in the next few months. I don't know when that is. I can't tell you because it's kind of been, delayed here and there. But, the Huntsman Center has to be renovated 100%.
Yeah. You mentioned you've been here a couple of years, Jason. For people who don't know, you came from the great state of Oklahoma. Earlier this week, we had Barry Trammell on. My guess is you know exactly who Barry Trammell is. Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
I love Barry. That is my guy. Me and Barry don't go way back, but Barry probably knows who I am. Barry's a great guy. I love Barry. He's one of the funniest, best guys that you will meet in the industry. He's always funny. He's always got something to say. He's very well plugged in. He's just a great guy. I love Barry Trammell. If I were to paint a picture of the like prototypical Oklahoman, Barry Trammell would be like the guy that I would put on a picture and put it on a mural and be like, this is what an Oklahoman is. So, that's Barry Trammell for sure.
Barry, last time he was on just earlier this week, he's a great combination of, like you say, there's a lot of sports knowledge, right? There's just a massive reservoir, the history, memorable quotes, memorable games, but he's really good at doing radio. He's done radio and TV in Oklahoma. He's really good as far as the stories and the entertainment factor. He was lecturing us on Rodgers and Hammerstein because he said, everyone in Oklahoma knows about Rodgers and Hammerstein. Why don't you guys? Like, we haven't lived in Oklahoma.
Oh, man, there's so many things that Barry can lecture you about. I mean, if you sit in a press box with Barry Trammell, even if you're like 5 seats away, you'll be engaged in a very philosophical conversation about something random. It's great. But like, I was talking about Barry Trammell with one of my, he works for the Oklahoma. His name's Colton Soleil. I was talking to him about Barry Trammell the other day, and he was just like, yeah, Barry was saying something about this, and I just was laughing it up, and I was like, oh, that's Barry. So Barry's a good guy for sure. Yeah. Maybe you should ask him about some Oklahoma things like massive gas stations like On Q or 7-Eleven or even Brahms. Ask him about the Brahms drive-thru. Or just Brahms in general, Brahms tables. He'll give you a full spiel on that. He's given me that a few times.
All right, we will do that. We'll save that clip, Jason. We'll have that for Barry next time he's on. With the Thunder in the finals, we could have them on in the next 2 weeks if they can win Game 7. That's what it comes down to. If they can win Game 7. So.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know if that Game 6 performance was not good, so we'll see what happens in Game 7. I'm from Oklahoma City, so I'm like personally rooting for my team.
Of course you are. I figured as much, Jason. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to follow-up stories here with the state auditor and the private equity deal and see where that goes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, my man. You have a good one.
All right. Jason Batacao, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Bronco Mendenhall, Utah State football coach. Old dog learning new tricks on the cutting edge of technology. We're going to talk with Bronco about that coming up at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
Look, I remember the early days of Shaq. If you're kids these days, you just only know Shaq from inside the NBA, or maybe the later years when he was hopping team to team and was a little out of shape and bigger than he needed to be. You go back and you watch those early 1, 2, 3 years when he was in Orlando, when he was svelte, and that dude, you watched him, you're like, he's changing the game. Shaq changed the game.
With sheer force, and you're exactly right, there was a revolution when Shaq came, no question.
And what we're seeing now is Wemby doing that. Wemby is changing the game of basketball. Not that you can replicate it, because you can't. You can't replicate Wemby, or we'd all be trying to go to the DNA, the dinosaur DNA with the old dude on the island and trying to recreate. You can't. That dude is one of one.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you love podcasts, you already know how to fit great stories into your busy day. So why not do the same thing with books? Everand is an affordable audiobook and ebook subscription that goes wherever you go. Your commute, your workout, your grocery run. No rearranging your schedule, no carving out reading time. Just hit play. For a limited time, new members get 2 free books when they start a free trial. Go to everand.com/listen to claim yours. That's everand.com/listen.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Win big on Wednesdays. The KSL Sports Zone has Win Tickets Wednesdays. Next week, you win tickets to see Britt Floyd at the Maverick Center. Saturday, June 6th. Great seats still available. Ticketmaster.com. Get your tickets today and listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday. June 3rd for your chance to win. We're still getting concert tickets. We're not doing the band of the day anymore, huh? They pulled out for 2026.
Yeah, it's on hiatus, I guess.
Well, get that back. Our music choices always irritated PK. Some rando birthday. You didn't like that. Just had Jason Batacao on, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. We had Mitch Harper on, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can hear those guys. Bronco Mendenhall, Utah State football coach, is going to join us at 9 o'clock. We'll talk more NBA playoffs coming up. If you missed it, you didn't miss much. A really good first quarter from the Spurs. Thunder got back in the game, and then the Spurs just dropped the hammer in the third quarter and blew that thing wide open. And now the Thunder are facing another Game 7. How many times can they pull a rabbit out of a hat? They won 2 Game 7s last year. And this is a new test for the Thunder. This is a new test for the Spurs. Winning an elimination game and then winning it on the road, really difficult. Now, obviously, they won a couple series to get here, but they were dominating. Basically, the other team beat and they were just throwing dirt on them at the end. This is different. But, man, I didn't think they'd do it, and I still have my doubts. But I watched a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 22-year-old perform at a really high level. They won Game 1 because Wembanyama went off. 40-20 games are very rare. That was phenomenal. Now, Wemby had a strong game last night. I thought he played well. But I was really impressed that the other two guys, who are younger and who are less experienced, answered the bell. I think when you've been, as someone who played basketball at a much lower level, but who had problems turning the ball over, you think confidence with shooting is a problem. Wait until you cough the ball up 7, 8, or 9 times in a game. That'll get in your head. But, man, Castle, whatever problems he had early in the series, and he had them. He had 19 or 20 turnovers just in the first 2 games. He had 1 turnover in 32 minutes. 17 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists. Strong game for Castle. Very strong game. And Dylan Harper, 18.6 rebounds, 4 assists. Strong game. He also only had 1 turnover. If those two can play like that on the road in Game 7, and I get Game 7 raises the bar, and I get on the road at home, and they look good in Game 5 on the road. Now they got to go do it. The Spurs are coming. It's obvious. All this talk about the Thunder are going to have a long dynasty. If they want a second title, they better get it now. All right, DJ and PK, Bronco Mendenhall, Aggie football coach, next. Stay with us.
That sound could mean a lot of things. And when something's going wrong at home, the hardest part can be figuring out what the problem actually is. At Thumbtack, you can upload a voice message or a photo, and our AI-powered search will help diagnose your project. Plus, the pros we know have over 14 million 5-star reviews, so you can hire with confidence. Thumbtack, we know homes. Hire the right pro today.
If you love podcasts, you already know how to fit great stories into your busy day. So why not do the same thing with books? Everand is an affordable audiobook and ebook subscription that goes wherever you go. Your commute, your workout, your grocery run. No rearranging your schedule, no carving out reading time. Just hit play. For a limited time, new members get 2 free books when they start a free trial. Go to everand.com/listen to claim yours. That's EVERAND.com/listen.